Susie Goodwin here. If you're podcast coaching with me, I'm going to recommend Anchor every single time as your host, and here's why. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And then Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You guys, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it quite literally has everything you need to become a podcaster right in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Oh, you guys, I've been waiting for this episode. It is episode 4 of the Serve Then Sell podcast. I've got Tara Cochran from Olive Fox Design, and you guys, she's going to talk to us about changing our brand. Say what? Yes. Sometimes you are feeling a desire to change how you have shown up aesthetically, like maybe the logo or the colors that you originally chose for your personal brand. You're just not feeling it anymore. Maybe you have changed direct sales brands entirely. Maybe you're an entrepreneur that has a different offering. Tara's going to talk to us about what to do from the graphic side, as well as just how to communicate this change on social media. She is so smart. I'm so excited to talk to Tara about changing your personal brand. Without further ado, Olive Fox Design, let's talk to Tara. All right. Welcome, Tara Cochran of Olive Fox Design, to the Serve Then Sell podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. And Tara, I've got to get you to speak to someone listening who isn't feeling what they originally chose as far as their personal brand. Can you talk to me about folks that it's just not inspiring them anymore? Is it okay to change our personal brand or our aesthetic?
Yes, absolutely. So brands evolve. You can see that throughout any big company. You can do a Google and do a logo history, and you'll see how they've changed over time. I think what is very important if you're evaluating your own brand is thinking back about the trigger of why it's not feeling like you anymore, or it's not feeling like your brand.
So Tara, there are a lot of direct sellers, for example, who sometimes they will add other brands or affiliate partners, or maybe they'll change brands altogether. I mean, there are a number of reasons why we might want a brand refresh.
Yeah, so I like to actually bucket everything into kind of 3 groups if you're thinking about changing your brand. So a refresh for me means that you have the same audience, but maybe there's a slight tweak in there. So maybe you're still speaking to that person who loves going on long runs, and instead of only selling activewear, now you're adding in another something into your mix. And so when you're doing that, you might just want to make a quick little edit to your own brand. So this would be something like swapping out a few colors or maybe updating your logo, but it wouldn't be a complete overhaul of everything. And if you're going to do an overhaul of everything, for me, this is what I like to call a rebrand. And this would really be a new audience or a completely new direction. So if you were with one company and they were focused on fitness, and now you're on a company that's a completely different path, maybe a skincare company, and those two audiences don't have much overlap for you, that would be more in the rebrand section. Then the third category that I like to put this into is really splitting your brand. And this is when you, like you, Susie, you had Run Lift Mom, and now you have Serve Then Sell. So you have 2 different directions that you're going to, and you don't want to abandon Run Lift Mom, but you also want to have a new audience. So you segregated your brands into 2 separate brands.
You know, I get the question a lot. People say, well, why didn't you just do everything under one umbrella? I mean, for a while in the podcast space, I was bringing business type topics to Run Lift Mom. Listener, I need you to hear that sometimes in order to grow, you've got to niche down. And personally, I felt like in trying to serve everyone, I was serving no one well. I was mediocre, right? Trying to serve to everyone, but I wasn't really knocking it out of the park with either specific audience. And so that's my personal story, but I'll tell you, it's echoed with a lot of direct sellers. And I would encourage you to think about that. Have you niched down? Do you need to separate? So, can you talk to me a little bit too, Tara, about how we might go about this? Like, do your clients announce, like, hey, I've done a brand refresh, look at this, pull the curtain back? Or is it more just change it and see when people notice? How do they approach it?
Yeah, so this again, it depends on what the motivation for the change was and the type of refresh that you're doing. So if you're just doing a refresh and you're adding in some new colors into your color palette and getting rid of some old ones that don't speak to your audience anymore, for me, I wouldn't necessarily announce that. I would just test it out in my graphics for a few months and see how your audience receives it. And I wouldn't make a big deal about it. But if you're going through a big rebrand, which most of my clients are doing if they're hiring me, make it fun. It's an exciting time in your business. You've pivoted your direction. You're getting super clear on who you're talking to, and it's a big step forward. So for those clients who are getting a whole new look, that's always a fun, big launch.
Great advice. You know, a lot of people like to see that kind of behind the scenes sort of stuff, so it can become really neat personality content too.
Exactly. And I've seen some people will change up their colors and they'll tweak them for the seasons and they'll talk about that. And it's very much on brand for those very empathetic people who like to feel their environment, that in the summer they shift into a more light green and in the winter they'll shift their brand colors into a deeper dark green. So it's just really, it all depends on what you're comfortable with and how much you want to share behind the scenes.
Ooh, I know some light bulbs are going off in some people's head. This is really good brainstorming. Tara, the takeaway here, we want to be ourselves with our visual content, right?
Yes, exactly.
I love how you say, too, to kind of test it with our audience. Do you find that that's a successful strategy, like to listen to the audience and lean into maybe changes that they might be receiving well?
Yes, it's a great thing to do so you can formally talk to your people and ask them about different opinions on what you're doing. Or I like to honestly just test the waters and look at the back end metrics. I will make sure I'm putting out a few different graphics. And then after a month or so of doing that, make sure you give them enough time to hit the internet and do what they need to do in the SEO world. And then I like to go back into my back end and see how it's being received and who's receiving it.
Friend, if you're listening and you're like, dude, I only have like a Facebook page and an Instagram account, you have analytics, you have metrics for any social media channel that you're on. A quick Google search will help you know how to decipher those metrics. Use the data when you're doing something like what's referred to in the marketing world as like an A/B test.
Yes, exactly. So quick tip for your Instagram users, there's likes that everybody's familiar with, and then there's comments, and comments are great because you can read through those and really get a perception of how people are receiving that. Or there's saves, and if people are saving that, then that speaks to that value-driven content that people will keep referring back to over and over. And those saved ones and the ones that have a lot of comments and discussions, those are the types of content you really want to focus on and grow from there.
I want to speak to people directly who might be a little bit caught up with vanity numbers. And by that, I mean number of followers. I love that save metric. You guys, if you're doing goal setting for this month, next month, whatever, make that a goal. Can you look at how many saves you've had in the last 30 days and then up the ante? That kind of goal is worth accomplishing. Thank you so much, Tara. This has been a fun conversation. I want to remind the listener that we've got show notes here. So guys, you're going to click detail, swipe up, or you can go to tara.servethenSell.com. Thank you so much for listening to this episode in the album with Tara Cochran from Olive Fox Design. You can find complete show notes with details on everything that we're talking about at tara.servethenSell.com. That's Tara, TARA.servethenSell.com. And don't forget to pass this on to a friend that you have in network marketing or direct sales.